be, possibly. It usually takes about 3-4 seconds, and I think we're live. Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Kieran, and welcome to the recent podcast Dev Thingy. And today, I am talking to the one and only MorganM. Morgan, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Morgan, and thanks a lot for having me on the podcast, by the way. In these troubling times.
These troubles. The troubles.
In the troubles, there we go.
I was close to making a joke there, and I was like, oh no, let's just step back away from that.
There we go. No car bombs this time. But but I'm the principal dev on Atomic MP, which is a multiplayer Fallout fan game that we've been working on for a hot second. And essentially, the reason I think why we're having this podcast is because we've recently made some major fixes to the game, and it's definitely in a more presentable state. Yeah. And I'm hoping that some of you will gladly, come to our Discord and check it out and give your feedback and all the above.
Yeah.
And I'm just here to talk about the particulars, design, art, what we're planning for the future, the whole 9 yards.
Got a lot of cool questions for you, man. Some gameplay mechanics, got some interesting little things. By the way, this is going to be uploaded to YouTube, so the Discord which Morgan's referring to is down in the description below for you wondering. For you for Twitch, then now you're just going to have to fucking wait, yeah? It's all good. Or just go to the Atomic MP Bundicot video and you can find it there. Yeah.
There you see, it's a double plug.
Yeah, double plug. See, I was actually really excited for this podcast because recently, was it over the past 3? Have I done 3? Yeah, I've done 3 interviews with like Fallout modders and all that before, and I realized my questions were getting sort of the exact same because everyone is working on like the creation engine and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is like a standalone game.
Yeah, I think, if anything, I think that's kind of what... So, a little bit of backstory. So, I've been working I went to school, actually, for level design and game design. But then, kind of coming out of school, I ended up finding myself more drawn towards the sort of technical programming engine aspects. And actually, in the beginning, this project was just supposed to be a way for me to learn multiplayer. Because, for those of you who don't know... but I'm sure this kind of probably will seem obvious to everybody. Multiplayer design and multiplayer games are way, way harder to make than single-player games.
Yeah.
I think, if anything, Fallout 76 is probably a testament to that.
Yeah, I was just a bit of reference out there.
Yeah, but multiplayer games are just a pain in the ass to make, and on every level, right? On a technical level, on design level, like they're just much more difficult to make. Because if you think about it, a single-player game. It's almost kind of similar to a movie where the director or whoever's making the game has a pretty good idea of what your experience is going to be like.
Yeah.
And then also, if you ruin your experience, it's only ruined for you and not for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Because, in Fallout 76, for example, if you're walking around and there's some NPC that you really want to talk to or something, and their head gets blown off and then you can't talk to them, your gaming experience has been ruined by another player, right?
Yeah.
So the multiplayer, there's definitely a lot of balancing that goes into there, and that's something that we've been trying to wrap our heads around. But in the beginning, all this was just supposed to be a way for me to kind of experiment with this, right?
Yeah.
But then, of course, it got a lot more interest, and I ended up realizing that, I think what I always really have loved Fallout, but I think I've almost loved it more from a creative standpoint and from a universe standpoint than the games themselves. Like I think my favorite Fallout is easily New Vegas, but I think I've always almost been more attracted to the lore behind it and to the universe, even more so than necessarily the games. So in my head, I thought, well, what I really want is I want a place where I can basically live in the Fallout universe, pretty much, and have it be my own rules and my own everything, right? So I think that's kind of where the
God of your own realm,
the impetus. Yeah, God of my own realm. There we go. Which, for the record, I think a lot of video game designers kind of have a little bit of a god complex somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It kind of takes that to be sitting there making your own little world, right? But yeah, so that's the impetus behind that. And like you were saying, I think compared to the Creation Club, I think or the creation engine. I think there's a lot of differences that come from just format, right? Because there's a lot of things that, like, there's a lot of things that those boys who are working on those projects, boys and girls, I should say, they're already going to have all laid out for them. So, like, the gunplay, the AI, all this is stuff that they already have. Right?
All the fundamentals are just already there.
All the fundamentals are already there, right? But what they don't have is they don't have the ability to create completely new gameplay that's never been seen in Fallout before, right? Because they're almost limited by that.
Yeah.
So, for example, this vertibird stuff that we're talking about, this latest video with the vertibird flying.
Yeah.
This is something that is almost impossible in the creation engine, right? You can have this vertibird flying around on predestined, flight routes, but actually having controls and being able to, land it and fly around all that. I think that's where the complications arise, right? And what I want to do is I want to have a game where, I can have the Fallout experience exactly as I imagine it.
Yeah.
And I think what I realized was that the creation engine in its current state was just too limiting for that, right?
Right.
So I think, that's kind of where that comes from. And actually, I think, if anything, I think that one of the things that I realized with Fallout 76 as it developed was that it was unlikely that they were ever going to give us modding tools for the multiplayer that would be interesting enough that I would want to use them.
Yeah. Right? Like, they would be bare bones at most. Bare bones, like a pedal or something like that, they would probably get you. But
exactly.
Yeah.
Which I think is sad, because I've always thought that the strength of the Bethesda games were in their ability to allow people to make almost complete overhauls of the games, right? And I think that once you take that away, the games are still good, but they don't have the same longevity that they would otherwise have.
Like, just look at Skyrim still. Like, there's still like full on games coming out through Skyrim.
Exactly.
Yeah. One actually I still have installed. I can't remember.
Because I think it's simple math, right? I think it's like, a dev team, they're gonna have, maybe 2-3 years to work on a project, maybe more in Bethesda's case, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of man hours, if you compare that to, 1 million modders working at the same time, those modders can produce content at a crazy pace, because, it's like 1 million people across the globe in comparison to just a dev team that's, a fixed amount of people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, that's for me what the strength of games like, Minecraft or like, Skyrim or whatever is, the ability to kind of, democratize game design and have all this new content. So yeah, I think that's how I see that.
That's fantastic. See, like, I have like a list of questions like loaded up here, and I just have to keep like lining them out, because you're just hitting all these points. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I'll just keep letting them go. Oh man, yeah, like the vertibird was something I wanted to like dive into a little bit, because like I was looking at the gameplay and it seemed very. Hang on, I'm just gonna quickly look at it again. It's like you can look at it in like a first person sort of perspective, right?
Exactly, that's correct.
It reminded me a lot of like Arma, sort of the way it's flying. Yeah. See, is there going to be like other vehicles in the game, or is that going to be the only one?
No, so here's the interesting thing about the vertibird.
Yeah.
The way that it works essentially is that you for right now anyway, in its current state, you walk over to the vertibird, and if you click on the pilot seat, it allows you to then control the vertibird, right?
Yeah.
But what's great is that other players can actually just jump in the vertibird and fly off with you, and they don't have to sit in a seat or anything. They can just jump on. So what I would compare it to is, if you've ever played Sea of Thieves, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, you can kind of jump on and off a boat at any time, right? This is the same, where basically the pilot jumps in the vertibird, he starts controlling it, and then any other player can quickly hop on or hop off at any time. Right?
Yeah.
And they're not forced to be locked into a turret or locked into a seat or whatever. Right?
Yeah. Oh, right. That's really cool, actually. I quite like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was sort of just making that comparison in my head there. I just finally got it. I know, we're just looking at some vertibird gameplay at the moment. It looks really fucking cool.
Yeah, and what's cool too is that it allows us, the vertibird, it then means that it has, especially if you look right now, the scale of the map has changed a lot from the previous version.
Yeah.
Where now actually to walk from one end to the other of the map could take easily like 30 minutes, right? In its current state, right? And so that means that all of a sudden vehicles like the vertibird, and because there's no fast travel in the game, vehicles like the vertibird all of a sudden have a much bigger utility. And we're going to have motorcycles as well, right?
Oh.
And so these vehicles will all of a sudden gain a whole new level, just because if you want to move around in any kind of speedy way, you'll need them, right? And the other thing about a vertibird too is that because you're in the sky and most of the enemies in our game are on the ground, like the creatures anyway.
Yeah.
It'll allow you to deliver supplies and people from one location to another without them having to go through some of these more dangerous areas.
Yeah. How will, like, I remember talking to you about this when you first released the vertibird gameplay, and I was this particular detail kind of got me a little bit excited because of the whole game being like sort of survival-y in a way. Obtaining the vertibird is quite interesting.
So essentially, I think the idea is that the vertibird starts out as a crash, right? So you find a crashed vertibird.
Yeah.
And when you find the crashed vertibird, it'll have enemies around it, and you'll have to defeat those enemies. And then once you've defeated them, you can salvage the crash, right? And then once you have that crash salvaged, basically you build a camp around the crash site, right? And then you have to go find the pieces to fix the vertibird. And the idea is that crash site will actually stay there. It'll be persistent until the vertibird is built. So for example, like maybe you'll log in one and you'll find a crash. You set your camp there, and then you log off. When you log back in, the crash will still be there waiting to be worked on, right?
Right, okay.
And then that way, basically, you can have a team of people who, every day are gathering resources, gathering materials to fix up this vertibird.
Yeah.
And then once it's done, then you have a flyable vertibird that you can fly wherever you want, right? And I think what we're going to do as well is that we're going to have locations that you can fly the vertibirds to that other players cannot walk to, right? So, for example, on the top of a cliff that you can't scale or whatever, right?
Right.
And so that'll be a way for players to basically keep their vertibird from being destroyed by other players, is because it'll be so high up that they won't be able to reach it.
Yeah.
Or at some point, once we have base building, you'll have a garage where you can go and you can park your vertibird.
My interest got piqued when you said base building. I don't think that was said before. I was like, "Ooh, hello."
Yeah. So with the new scale of the map, I think we're gonna do, and we're trying to keep the scale of our ambitions relatively low so we can have this released in the near future.
Yeah.
But I think what I want to do is I want to have it so that essentially, you find a plot of land, right? So there'll be spaces out in the wasteland that you can find. And then you claim that as your own, and then you can build buildings. And essentially, the way it'll work is that each building will have it'll be predefined building sets. So we're not going to have similar to what Fallout 4 has, where you're placing each individual little bit.
Right.
It'll really be predefined buildings.
Right.
But there'll be buildings that will be based off of what faction you are. So let's say, for example, you're a raider, right?
Yeah.
All the buildings that you'll place will be raider themed buildings, right?
Okay.
But then if you're an NCR player, any buildings that you place will be NCR themed. So that way, from a distance, if you see a player's base, you'll be able to know what faction they are, right? And then if you're a wastelander, you just have the neutral buildings, right?
Yeah.
And so that way, what it'll do as well is it'll allow players to go out and colonize the wasteland for their faction, and it'll be visually easy to see what faction is where, because they'll have their own building styles, right?
Yeah. Right. See, I want to scale back just a little bit because we've not really. I don't think before factions have been really in discussion, really. Like you just mentioned, like NCR and then Raiders and all that sort of stuff there. So I'm kind of curious on how all that's going to work. Will they be like NPC driven, or will it just be in like NCR is just filled and just operated by players?
So here's what I'm going to do for some of these questions. I think is a good idea. Is I'm going to tell you what we already, and then I'm going to tell you what I want, and then I'm going to tell you how much time I think it's going to take. So that way we all have a good idea, because I want to keep these conversations realistic, right?
Of course.
In the way that I think is I want something that people can play in, max a year. I don't want to have a crazy project that everybody loves the idea of, but that they'll never be able to play. Right.
Right. Okay.
So what we have right now is you can choose a faction, and it's attached to your Discord faction. So the game looks at your Discord faction, and then that assigns you your faction.
Right.
But at the moment, all it does is that it changes the color of your name, and that's it. Right.
Yeah.
The next level that I want to implement is I'm going to have these faction hubs, basically, right? So there's going to be the Raider faction hub, the NCR faction hub.
Yeah.
And based off of the tag, those NPCs will either shoot you or they won't shoot you. And if they don't shoot you, then you can come in and you can access their unique faction shops, right?
Okay.
So that's actually not too complicated to make. So I think we could easily have that in a couple months, right?
Yeah.
We already have actually most of the setup for that. We have human NPCs, we have the faction tags. So really, it's just a matter of connecting those two and building locations, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then what I want in the future is I'd like it so that the factions have these big hubs, where there's NPCs that are controlling them.
Yeah.
But then the NPCs give faction kind of quests. So essentially, what it would be is you'd have some kind of bulletin board for each faction, and those would be given out to the players, and there'd be different quests for different ranks. So let's say you're in the faction. Let's say you're like you're a warlord, a raider warlord or something, right?
Yeah.
You'd be given a different pool of quests than the basic recruit, right?
Okay.
And those quests would be automatically generated by the factions, and then you would go do those quests. And then once you did those quests, you'd be rewarded with reputation in your own faction, right?
Right.
So essentially what that would do is it would mean that there would be always something to do within the faction.
Mm-hmm.
But then also is that the quests themselves would be naturally directed by the NPCs instead of having to be, made by a moderator or an admin or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think what would be even the next layer, this would be the even further layer, would be that those faction quests would change based off certain things, like, for example, the amount of times the faction has lost territory, or like, how many members are in the faction, or how much money the faction has, or all these things. And then different quests would be put into the pool based off of those values.
Yeah.
So let's say the faction is doing really low on money, right? Like, there's been a lot of new recruits lately. They've had to buy kit. So the faction bank is really low. Well, then the NPC would put out a quest for all the recruits saying, hey, go do caravans to get the faction money.
Yeah.
So that'd be the recruits. But then the quest for like a leader would be get 5 players and go raid another settlement, right? So you'd see that like the quests that would be given out to each player would be based off their rank and based off of the needs of the faction, pretty much. And I think that you can see that each different layer that I gave you of that system is more and more complex, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the way that I see it is I think we need to do each layer one at a time. And then over time, the system will get more and more interesting, right?
Yeah.
So right now we have this first base layer of, okay, well, the players have factions, and there we go, right? You can see who's in which faction. That system works. The next layer is there's NPC hubs, and only those players can go there without being shot, right? That's like the next level. And then the level beyond that is this last level that we've been discussing of, having these quests that are given out to the players with the reputation system and all of that, which is obviously going to take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But I think the way to go about it is really building these systems one at a time. So that way we can have tests where players can come and try them out, because we might not even know it, but maybe this idea that I'm having is actually going to be boring and not fun at all, right?
Yeah.
And then that way we can have a first test, and then if everybody's saying like, yeah, Morgan, I don't know, this shit kind of sucks, right?
Yeah.
Then I can just scrap it before we invest a bunch of time in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's sometimes I feel like it's sometimes the mistake that I see with some of these big modding projects.
Yeah.
Is it would be a lot better for them to do incremental releases of their game.
Yeah,
there's people try it out.
Yeah, there's one project that's doing it, Badlands. They're releasing their mod in like 5 different like sort of releases instead of all just jumbled up in the big one, which I feel like is way better.
Smart.
Yeah, it's way better. Instead of waiting like 20 years to finish a mod and then release it and then find out like, oh, it's not really that fun. Yeah.
Exactly, because I think that's something that people underestimate with games all the time. But you can be so sure of an idea, and then you try it out, and it turns out it's just not that good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It happens all the time.
Yeah, that's what I like with your project actually, is how open you are with it. To be honest, like with the testing and all that as well, because even like big official video games, right? None of them fucking get testers for it. Like no, they don't get outside people to come and play either. To just it usually ends up in chaos. So I'm glad that you do that.
Well, actually, I'm gonna tell you a little something about QA, because a lot of my friends are QA for big game studios, because I'm from Montreal, so I know there's a lot of big gaming studios up here, and I've worked in a couple of them, and I have a lot of friends in them. And the truth about QA is that most of the time, first off, those guys tend to be treated like dog shit a lot of the time, and also a lot of those guys, they don't get to have any input on the design. So all they're doing is basically testing for bugs, right?
Yeah.
And what that means that these games can be totally not fun, and
but they're
bug free, or they don't have as many bugs. But it doesn't even matter, because if you're fixing the bugs, but the game is shit, who cares, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something actually that a lot of companies are now realizing, is that it makes more sense to do testing with actual players, and to give the QAs a little more freedom, and talking to the designers, because ultimately you get a better game, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the more companies realize that, the more they're going to be able to make better games. And I think that there's this idea in games that, like, making profit and making a fun game are incompatible, right?
Yeah.
But I actually think that that's not true, because you look at some of the games that have made the most money throughout the industry, and
Fortnite.
their games, exactly, their games where, but that's the thing, is that they're games where the designers thought, well, what do the players really want? And then every update, they would go, hey, here's a new feature, tell us how you like it. Here's a new feature, tell us how you like it. And, Fortnite, though it's not my favorite game, I don't even play Fortnite.
Neither do I, to be honest.
But one thing that's uncontested about Fortnite is that they update a lot, right?
Yeah.
They put out a lot of updates.
They're consistent,
Yeah, they do a lot of community surveys, and that shit's fucking gold, man.
Yeah.
That's how you make a good game, is by talking to your customers.
Yeah.
Like, if I open a sandwich shop, and every time I make a sandwich, the customers come over and say, hey, you know what? If you could put a little more fucking pickles on it, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
And I don't put any pickles on the sandwich, I'm gonna lose my customers. That's just how it works.
Yeah. But some do not understand. See, actually, I've got interesting questions for you.
Go ahead.
This one is sort of more on the legal aspect, right? So, Atomic is borrowing, or from like what I heard from ages ago, I don't know if it's changed or not, but like you borrowed assets from the main game. Yeah?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
How does that work? Is that going to be like a legal problem in the future? Like, how is that working?
So basically, Bethesda's stance on fan games for a long time has been that most of the time, if you're not making money and you don't represent competition to any of their games, they're unlikely to do what's called a DMCA, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, I realize that if this were to get popular enough, there's always the possibility that Bethesda would DMCA us. And to be honest, they would be within their rights to do that, because we are using both some of their assets, but also their IP, right?
Yeah.
And actually, this goes for any of the Fallout mod projects at all, right? Because if you're making a Fallout mod, technically you're reusing and redistributing their code, and you're making changes to it and distributing it to more people, right?
Yeah.
So there's always the potential for for legal backlash. I think what we've been doing to try and mitigate that is, at the moment, anybody who wants to play A&P, we require that you own Fallout 4 on PC or on console.
Yeah. That was in your FAQ, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So that's one of our that's kind of one of our preventative measures, and the other one is that we're never going to make money off.
yeah,
I've never, not even donations, like I've never wanted to make any cash at all.
yeah.
So what I'm hoping is, I'm hoping that Bethesda and all of its wisdom
Hmm.
can see us for what we are, which is just a fan game that's kind
Yeah,
of like trying to bring more attention to the Fallout franchise,
yeah.
and that they'll also be able to understand that anybody playing our game is a good thing for them, because it means that they have to purchase one of their games in order to
Hmm.
play. You know? So
Yeah,
it's not like we're diverting funds away from their game. It's more like
yeah,
people are just playing a version of Fallout
yeah.
that we see. But my plan B, in case they were ever to DMCA us, because of course I would say yes,
Yeah,
is that a lot of the work that's been done on this that's valuable is actually nothing to do with Fallout at all, right? So
yeah,
all the code is 100% from scratch. Right?
yeah,
Actually, most of the landscape, like in these new videos, all the rocks, the foliage, all of that is not from Fallout, right? All of that is our own asset.
mm-hmm.
So the way I see it is that if they were ever to DMCA us, I would have basically this multiplayer framework and all these assets, and I could just make my own game, pretty much.
See, I was thinking that just there because, like, even with the name Atomic MP, you could always just do a little spiritual successor to Fallout, so it would essentially be like the same tone and feel, but you could, yeah, just essentially just go off and do your own thing, which could be more freeing as well.
Exactly. So the way that I'm seeing it, is that for now, what I'm doing, all this code, right? And
Yeah.
the way that I see it, if Bethesda decides to DMCA us, for me, all that work won't be lost. All it will mean is that we'll have to get rid of the human animations and the creatures and all that. But the truth is that there is a lot of resources online for human animations, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, and I'm not trying to rag on Bethesda too hard, but Bethesda's human animations aren't even really that good in comparison.
They're really
to a lot
not.
of
That's yeah.
So I think that this idea that it would be some kind of major loss if we got DMCA'd by Bethesda, I think is actually not so true. And to be honest, all of this is mostly born out of two things for me: my love for Fallout and my desire to learn more about making games, right?
Yeah.
And so if Bethesda sees this as a threat, I will gladly, change our project, because for me it wouldn't really, it would only mean that I'd be losing the Fallout of it.
Yeah.
But at that point, that's just one part of the whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for now, I'm sticking with this. But if Bethesda ever has any problems with our project, I will gladly, gladly, and I don't think it'd be very much of a loss, in my opinion.
No, definitely not, because you still have like all your fundamentals there again,
Exactly. And I think that the gameplay that we're this kind of like post-apocalyptic, like sandbox sort of gameplay in first person, I think is something that people are hungry for anyway, right?
Yeah.
The way I just played a game recently called Kenshi. I don't know if anybody's
Ken, I love Kenshi. Yeah.
To put things into perspective, basically what I want to make is a first-person shooter version of Kenshi, essentially. Right? Obviously, there's differences, but that's kind of what I'm going for. And for me, if it's in Fallout, great. If it's not in Fallout, so be it.
Yeah. See, if I'm completely honest, I think it would be way cooler if you did your own, like if you did, like, hypothetically, if you did get DMCA'd. And you decided to go in your own direction and do your own thing and make it non-Fallout. For me, I just see it doing really well. I don't know why.
I'm sure it would, but I think this is where we come into another conversation. Is that the other big truth that people sometimes miss about games is that the moment that you're making a game for profit, the moment you cross over, the moment you start making a game for profit, it means that you need to start thinking about making money, right?
Yeah.
And the truth is that making a game from scratch versus making a game in your free time is a completely different level of stress. A completely, like all of a sudden, what was just you having fun working on your own stuff is talking to investors, finding support for the game, marketing, all this stuff. And that's cool, and I would love to do that. But if I was gonna do that, it would represent a big change, even just in my life, right?
Yeah.
Because it would mean, I'd have to make a studio, I'd have to start hiring people,
Yeah.
and all of that is a complete different change of pace. So I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but given the choice, I would prefer to continue working on this kind of as a side project until the day where, either I have no choice or I feel like I have enough capital, enough money in my bank account, enough everything to be confident enough to open my own studio. But I mean, I'm only 24, right?
Yeah.
And opening your own studio and all this shit is a big decision. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, people get so used to seeing all these mod projects and everything that they think, oh, well, from a mod project to a game, that can't be that big of a jump.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is that just to be marketable on Steam requires a huge amount of effort. Like, you're competing against the world's biggest digital marketplace, and you have to get your little rinky-dinky game to show up on there, right? It requires like a mammoth amount of effort, right? So I'm sure I'd like to think it'll happen someday, and I'm sure it will, but I think that day is not today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's completely See, it's crazy.
I think in essence, I think you're right. I think it would be good, but it's just I think you have to ask yourself, well, like how ready am I to throw my chips in? But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, that's fine. No, I was just I was just thinking over about all the background stuff of games, because again, I'm not a developer. I never think about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. We were just talking about testers. The average QA tester gets paid a salary from 30,000 to 50,000 Canadian dollars here in Canada per year if they're entry level. Right? And 30,000, 50,000, that's just one tester, right? Now imagine if I would need to hire 3 testers, a game designer, a level designer, 2 artists, programmer, like that's salaries that are just in salaries. Forget marketing, forget anything else. Just in salaries, you're already hitting expenses of $100,000 a year or more.
That's crazy, yeah.
And the only way, obviously no individual, unless you're like the fucking Prince of Dubai or something, can take that on their own, right? So what that means is 2 things. That means either taking out a loan, which is the first thing, or that means going to some investor and saying, hey, here's my game project. I'd like to pitch it. What do you say, right? And for the loan part, of course, a loan is super risky, right? Because it means that you're basically putting your ass out there, and if if the game doesn't work or whatever happens, you've got this crazy loan to pay back, right? And the other option, getting investors, takes a lot of time. You have to build documents for the game. You have to have a prototype that they like, all this, right? But then on top of that, once you do that, they're gonna want to take some of the creative freedom from your game, right? Because as an investor, they are going to want certain things, and they're going to give you certain advice or whatever, right? And I'm not saying that any of that is bad in and of itself, but it's all things that have to be considered when you're kind of throwing yourself into the pit like that. You know what I mean? So I just think sometimes when people think about making games, they forget just how Herculean of a task it is to get something like this off the ground. You know what I mean?
There's when you're talking about all that, they actually covered a game recently called Within the Cosmos.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was like a space Outer Worlds kind of style RPG, all being made by like one guy. And that guy must be fucking stressed out of his mind. It's just thinking about all of that elements.
Yeah, it reminds me of I don't know if you ever heard of Stardew Valley. It's
yeah.
That was developed by one guy over 10 years, right? And you have to think that means that this dude was building this game for 10 years, making no money, no income, right? If I remember correctly, I think it was his girlfriend who was helping him out, who was working. And just to have that amount of faith, and the truth is that his game could have easily not worked, and it might have even just been dumb luck. He might have released the game on the wrong day, or like not enough press would have covered it, or it would have made the Steam top 10 or whatever, right? And then that would have been 10 years just down the drain, pretty much. And like, yeah, it would have still been cool because he would have made his game.
Yeah.
But he could have never made another game, and he would have had to pay back all of his debts for the rest of his life, right?
Fuck.
And I think that when you realize that, you realize just how much of an act of faith it is for these individual developers to build these games. Because basically what they're saying, I know that there's a high probability chance that I'm never going to make enough money off of this, and that I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my life paying back debt, but I'm gonna do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why some of those dudes, some of those women and gentlemen who are making those games by themselves don't get nearly enough credit, because they're putting their lives on the line, literally their lives on the line to bring you entertainment, right? And I mean, I think that's really impressive, right? Yeah, because those are people who are potentially sacrificing everything just to make this game that they care so much about, right?
Yeah. Fuck.
And I think it's just something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, even Kenshi, we were just talking about. It's the same thing, right? It's this one dude who's been working on this thing. That's like at that point, guy? That's like your baby. Yeah, I think it's him and a couple other people that he hired after. I think he did most of it by himself.
Yeah, because I remember there was a Steam community post or a Twitter post or something like that, and he was like, yeah, we're working on Kenshi 2 already. I'm like, okay,
you're like,
if this is one person, you need to slow the fuck down. God.
But that's the thing, those people just have a burning passion, you know what I mean? Like, they're in it 100%, which I definitely admire a lot, But the truth is that, and I think I have some of that passion as well, but it also, it takes also knowing that you're in a stable enough place that you can survive, and at the moment, I'm still, trying to get better known in the game industry. I'm working in as many companies as I can, and so the day that I go indie is going to be a day when I have a lot of connections and a lot of people that I can reach out to get my game visibility. Like that's the thing is that the game industry is kind of a small industry, right? And once you've worked in a lot of companies, people know your name, and then at that point, you can get out.
Where everybody knows your name.
Yeah, everybody. And at that point, when it's time to market your game, all of a sudden you have a bunch of people you can reach out to. You can say, hey, like, listen, Jim, like, if you could just talk about my game on your podcast, or you could just do this or just that or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you potentially have a chance of your game being on the Steam top 10, which that's like, honestly, games live and die by the Steam top 10. That's the proving ground. For a lot of these indie games, if you don't get enough wish lists on Steam, like, that's it. Your game will not make it.
Fuck. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a cutthroat world out there for indies.
That explains it. Right. Okay. Right. So, because I was always thinking, because companies and all that, when they put out Twitter posts just before the game comes out, they're like, yeah, wish list is in Steam. Now understand. They now understand.
And you're always like, why are they insisting so much?
It's like, why do you want a wish list? God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because for them, that's like, dude, they have all these investors breathing down their neck, and that's the way for them to say, hey, look, people are going to buy this game, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I think that all this just to say that this is all my answer to the previous question about making my own game. I think that's kind of where that all comes from. And actually, some of the members of our team have worked on their own titles, and we've obviously all been helping each other out and encouragement and testing and all that.
Yeah, I think I think one of them share a link to their website or something like that in Discord once.
Yeah, that's very, very possible. I specifically off the top of my head, on the Discord, his name is the Lone Wanderer. They're currently making a fantasy co-op game called Exodus Rising. Yeah, exactly. Which I just played yesterday, and it's really polished. It's looking really good.
Yeah.
I think they're giving out keys actually. So if it's something you want to play it out there.
Keys, you say?
Yeah, but I think if anything, their story, they've been working on that game for like 4 years, right? And if anything, their story shows like just how much faith you have to be able to work on some of these games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely admire them a lot for that.
Yeah. Let's scale back to Atomic MP.
Yeah.
It's like we were delving off a very interesting topic, a very interesting one.
Yeah.
But let's go talking about that, because I think there's a few people in the chat that don't really know too much about the game. Like they probably watched the video, they probably know a little bit. So there's a few questions I wanted to ask. So the setting of this game, let's just bare bones. Let's go back to the beginning.
Let's do it.
So Nevada. Why?
Nevada, that's correct.
You chose it because of New Vegas, right?
So I chose it for a couple reasons.
Yeah.
So what's great about the state of Nevada, even forgetting is that, I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, but it's basically one giant desert that's bordered with California, has a big mountain range with a lot of forest in it, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I see it is that it's kind of, it's got a lot of biomes, right? It's got this desert area. It has some big salt flats as well. It's got some mountains. It's got some forest. It's definitely enough for a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
But the main reason why I want Nevada is because I want to make New Reno, right? Which, for those of you who aren't in the know, is basically New Vegas's sister city in the Fallout universe. So it's like it's the scummier, sort of shittier, more dark, more drug infested version of New Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Basically, New
Glasgow.
Vegas. Yeah, Glasgow. There you go. New Vegas, if there wasn't a Mr. House to keep everything together, you know what I mean? So it's a chaotic place. You can't walk down the street without somebody asking you to be in a porno or trying to kill you. That's the lay of the land, right?
Ask you to be in a porno.
There we go. No, that's how it is in Fallout 2. You're walking around, they're trying to eat it. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that city for me, it represents a lot of what I love about the wasteland, right?
Yeah.
The faction struggle, the crime, all these themes, this idea of war and of greed and human suffering, all these different themes, I think really come together. And also the more technical aspect is, in comparison to the creation engine, Unreal Engine is really good at doing cities. It's good at doing dense environments. It's really good at procedural generation. It's really good at what's called occlusion culling, which is basically when an object is not in the camera, it's instantly removed from the rendering, which means that you can get really good performance even in very dense city areas.
Yeah.
So what I'm hoping to take all of that Unreal Engine tech and to make this city in it, and that city will be like the epicenter of the map, right?
Yeah.
So you'll be coming in from the wasteland. So I mean, as you can see in the recent video, like the gas station video, it's a crazy huge desert, right? You're out in the middle of the desert. You're on the highway. You're walking down this highway, fighting your way through it, just to get to New Reno, and then New Reno will be like an explosion of like neon signs and like all this crazy shit, right? And I think that's what that's what I want to bring. That's what I want to bring into Unreal, is I want to bring that feeling, and I want to bring it into multiplayer.
Yeah.
Because I think the problem that I've seen with 76 is that it kind of feels, and even with this new stuff that they're bringing in with this Wastelanders update, it still feels kind of lifeless. You know what I mean?
Mm.
What I want to have New Vegas as it was originally envisioned in the concept art. This crazy huge city.
Yeah.
With like the fires burning and like people freaking out and all the stuff. And I think New Reno will be a good way to do that.
Yeah.
It's only ever been shown in the isometric Fallouts, so it's never had a 3D representation, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's the story of New Reno is kind of perfect, because basically, so the canon of our game is that the NCR wins the second battle of the Hoover Dam, and the Legion gets beat back into Arizona, right?
Right.
And so the NCR end up actually taking over New Vegas, and Mr. House lives, so he doesn't die, but Mr. House basically is forced into obscurity, and he never receives the platinum chip, so he's in basically a constant standoff with the NCR. And the more NCR show up, the more it gets colonized, the more Mr. House basically becomes like a figurehead for New Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So New Vegas has become very sanitized. Like between the NCR and Mr. House's robots, there's not very much space for crime anymore, right?
Yeah.
So all the criminals and all the vagabonds and all the bandits and all these shitty people are trying to find another city where they can, exist. And that city is New Reno, right? So New Reno, even more so than it's ever been, has become like this like crazy den of thieves and
hub for the
killers. And, exactly. Yeah. There you go. And so I think that's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, that sounds so fucking cool, man. That's brilliant. Are you excited to work in like New Reno?
Yeah, it's gonna be so good. Actually, so this new map, what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna work on these small locations, get things kind of livened up, and then we're gonna have a first build where I'm gonna be building Golgotha, which for those who don't know, Golgotha is the giant, basically cemetery right outside of New Reno, where all of the mobsters in New Reno, they go to like basically bury the people that they've killed, right? So like, there's people crucified all over the place. There's mass graves. There's like, like this, you can smell it from like miles away, right? There's like just tons of people fucked up there, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the entrance into New Reno. So to go to New Reno, you have to walk through Golgotha, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And Golgotha is pretty much a warning. It's like a warning to everybody coming into New Reno, It's like you're coming to New Reno and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to make a bunch of caps, whatever. Like I'm a big tough guy. And then you walk through this cemetery full of like all the people who've messed up in this city, right?
Right.
And then it kind of tempers you down a little bit, right? You're like, oh shit, maybe I'm not such a tough guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of the big location we're going to be working on. And then after that, we're going to get started on New Reno. But New Reno is going to be, because it can't just be buildings. It has to be buildings and NPCs and quests and the whole
filled
9
with
yards,
life
right?
and purpose.
Exactly. So I think the first things that we're going to do is we're going to get this basic quest system working. We already have our dialogue system.
Yeah.
Which we've shown off previously.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have, I'm going to be testing out some of the NPCs in smaller towns. And then once we have a good feeling on how the quests work, once we're happy with, kind of the way the game is, the basic gameplay, then we'll move on to New Reno.
Yeah. Oh, that should be exciting. Just hopping on for that, because there will be tests in New Reno. Definitely.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
That'd be an exciting first test to do.
And actually, what I'm hoping now is that, now that we've fixed our database, I'd like to keep on having tests as often as we can. So potentially, either every weekend or every other weekend, maybe every other weekend. I think that'd be more realistic. I'd like to have tests and get as many people on as possible. So, for example, I'm thinking of maybe trying to do one next weekend. So next weekend, if you're around, Bundy, I guess with this quarantine, we might all be around.
Yeah,
we can definitely jump in and we can have a go. I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%.
Cool.
So there's ages ago, I've not had the chance to do it, and because I think the last time I played the test, you gave me your account or something like that.
That's correct.
Yeah. So there was a character creator, right?
Yeah, that's true. There is a character creator.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to mention there is an option to be a ghoul in the character.
That's correct.
Will this impact anything? If I play as a ghoul, right? Obviously other people are going to role play as racists and shit like that. Well, NPCs look at me and be like, "Oh no, it's that zombie." Or whatever.
So I'm gonna do the typical thing where I tell you what we have, what I want, and how long it's gonna take. So I'm gonna send you actually right now some screenshots to back this up. So what we have right now is when you're a ghoul, there's a variable in your in your character that tells NPCs that you're a ghoul, right?
Yeah.
And so, for example, let me see. Let me find a good screenshot of this.
So for those watching the stream now, just as you're finding that, this is actually gameplay from back in January that you're watching now. So this isn't even an updated build or anything like that. So this is much of this is probably changed by now, and also the graphics are not as great because it's on my old computer, so it's a bit shite. But
if you want, you can also show them the new.
Yeah, I've been showing them. I showed off the garage gameplay and the inverter gameplay as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, this is the look of the dialogue system now that Morgan was just talking about there.
Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, so basically, you'll see that the way the dialogue system works is essentially right now there's a bunch of variables, and every time the NPC gets to a dialogue option, they check all those variables, and that influences what they're going to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, right now we already have this in the game. If you're a ghoul, certain NPCs will choose different options. So, for example, there's this caravan guard who is himself a ghoul, right? And if you talk to him and you're a ghoul, you have an extra option, but it's not highlighted. It's just an extra option, but it's not highlighted, so you can choose to take it or not.
Yeah.
Where you can tell him, hey man, life is hard as a ghoul. Can you give me a little more money? And then he'll say yes, right?
Right.
And so it's like there's these extra options that you'll have depending on like different stats on your character. So let's say you're a big tough guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you show up for like a mercenary job, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna pay you more money if you're tough because they're like, oh, this guy, he's gonna protect us better, right? But if you're also dumb, they might try to rip you off and give you a shittier price, right?
Right.
So all the stats, all the special stats will be important because at any moment, it might screw you over. Like if your character is super dumb, you're gonna get screwed over by every merchant, right? Because they'll think you're an idiot and they'll think they can take advantage of you, right?
Yeah.
But if you're really smart but you're also really weak, then people are going to try to intimidate you because they'll know that you're smart, but they'll also know that you're weak, and so they'll try to take advantage of you by being a bully, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's all these different layers that we're going to have with the dialogue, and actually right now we have all the systems ready for that. We have the whole dialogue system is currently in place. It checks all the variables, all of that is in place. So now really it's just about making NPCs and making content.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I think actually the first quest that I'm going to have, which I've already started working on, is the Caravan Quest. And that's going to be the quest that I'd like to have in the build. So basically what you do is that you follow this Brahmin or this bighorner around, and you bring them from one location to the other. And once you've brought them to the other location, then the character will give you a reward, right, for bringing the Brahmin over. But then also the kind of twist is that another player could come while you're bringing the Brahmin from one location to the other, and then kill you and then loot the Brahmin, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's like then you have basically two different roles that the players can play in each quest, either as the person who's doing the quest or the person who can come and interrupt the quest, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you see how it kind of ties into the faction stuff that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Because if you're part of the Raider faction, the Raider faction might give you a quest called go raid a certain amount of caravans, right?
Yeah.
Go fuck some caravans up. Those caravans will be other players. They won't be NPCs. They'll be other players, right? So at that point, you see how the different factions kind of intertwine with each other. Right?
See, I'm curious, like, with players killing other players, you have the reputation system in there. We've talked about that. Is there going to be like a karma system, kind of like in DayZ? I keep making DayZ comparisons, but it's like.
So actually, there won't be a karma system, right? But what there will be is there'll be two things. There will be, first off, a reputation system with each faction. So if you kill players from another faction, your reputation is going to change with that faction, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say, for example, you kill a lot of NCR soldiers, right? If you show up at an NCR base, they'll shoot you on sight, right? And if you murder a lot of innocent people, then let's say you murder a lot of wastelanders outside of a town. That town is no longer going to like you. Well, let's say you go into a town and you shoot up a shop or something, right?
Yeah.
That town, the next time you try to come there, they'll kill you on sight, right?
Right. See, I was actually gonna. Sorry. I was gonna ask, like, so there's no like safe areas like in towns. You can't you become invulnerable in a town or something like that. So there's none of that.
At the moment we have safe areas in the towns.
Yeah.
But at some point I'd like to remove that and have it so that there's no safe areas. But if you shoot somebody in a town, you'll have to suffer the consequences, right?
Yeah.
But that's going to take a lot of design work to keep people from just spam killing each other in the town.
Yeah.
So for the moment, we're making it so you're invulnerable inside of town, but it's a temporary measure.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
And the other thing I was going to say is that so there's that one system, and there's no karma system, but what there is that if you go and kill a lot of people, it's gonna add a stat to your character, and that stat is basically like it'll affect your demeanor, right? So let's say you kill a lot of people, right? It might affect your charisma, so you might be less charismatic if you've murdered a lot of people because your guy is like basically suffering from PTSD from having murdered so many people, right?
Your guy just becomes like Frank Castle.
Exactly, and also your physicality, your guy will just look more evil, right? You know, because it's like
is it kind of like in Fable?
Kind of like in Fable, exactly. So it won't be obvious changes to your character like in Fable, like you're not going to grow horns or anything.
Yeah.
But when an NPC talks to you, they can tell that you're a bad motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
So let's say like, you know, maybe there's a quest in the town where you have to help some shopkeeper like go I don't know, like, you know, it's a quest where you have to go help some shopkeeper find some missing supplies, right? If you're a normal guy and you show up, you know, the shopkeeper will be like, oh yeah, like, you know, I could use your help. You seem like a good guy. If you could go get these supplies, I'd really appreciate it. But if you're a bad motherfucker who's killed tons of people, the moment you step into that shop, they're gonna take one look at you and they're gonna be like, actually, we're fine. We don't need your help, right? Because you're scaring the shit out of them because you're this crazy killer, right? So there's no karma system, but people will look at you differently if you've done a lot of bad shit.
Yeah. Oh man, I find that really interesting. Really.
And the other thing too is that, you know, there's going to be we're going to make a bounty hunting system. So we don't have this implemented yet, but I'm going to be working on it. A bounty hunting system.
Yeah.
Where basically either NPCs will put a bounty on you, or other players can put a bounty on you. So if you do a lot of crazy shit, you know, you can expect somebody to be coming to look for you, right?
Yeah.
To try and get that bounty on your head. And because in our game, when you die, you lose all of your items, right?
Yeah.
You know, having a bounty on you is a shitty thing, right? Because that means that at any moment you might be doing something and somebody will come and kill you for your item. So, you know, that's the lay of the land on that one.
All right. Morgan, I fucking love that. The whole concept of bounty hunter thing. Because before Late 76 came out, I was making like videos like with my ideas for what I would want. And one video was becoming a bounty hunter or something like that was called, and it basically described exactly what you just said there.
Isn't it a cool idea?
I think it's fucking cool. Yeah, I would love that. Like making like a bounty hunter guild or something like that. Completely role playing that scenario would be fucking amazing.
It's gonna be, especially in this map that we have right now, where it's like this big open desert. I can just imagine, you know, like you're hiding behind some rocks, you know, with your sniper rifle, like waiting for this dude, you know, and like you heard from somebody that he needs to go do this quest or that he's part of this faction, so you're just waiting for him, right?
Yeah.
And then you see him, and you just pop his head off, and you go and you grab the bounty, you know.
Yeah.
And you go back to the town and you get your caps from the office. You know, I just think it's such a cool concept, you know.
Oh man, like it's something you wouldn't see in like 76, for example.
Yeah, and the truth is that from a technical standpoint, it's not very difficult to do, right? Because all you have to do is you have to have a system where you can like put a player's name in, and then you add a bounty.
Yeah,
and then if somebody kills that player, they get that amount of cash. Like it's not very complicated. I think the reason why Bethesda didn't do it in 76, for example, is because it's, for it to make any sense, for it to have any bite, when you kill the person, it needs to be bad for them. And the problem is that right now in 76, if you kill another person, it's really not that big of a deal, right? Like what, they lose a little bit of junk or something.
Yeah.
Shit, you know? It's like, it's barely even worth mentioning, right?
Yeah.
But in our game, when you die, you lose fucking everything, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, being the target of a bounty has a lot more meaning, right? Because it's like, oh shit, if this person, like if I did do something bad and I have tons of bounty on me, somebody's gonna come for me eventually, right?
Yeah.
And when I die, it's gonna really suck, right?
Yeah. I can just imagine like the tense scenario of like you realizing you have a bounty and then you run off somewhere to try and like store some stuff before getting shot, so you just don't lose any of your inventory.
The other thing too, other than just your inventory, which will avoid people like just storing their items to avoid getting shot, is that people will have reputations as gunslingers, as legends, right?
Right.
And if you have a bounty on you, that legend goes up, right? So it's like if you have a bounty, the legend goes up. But if somebody kills you and takes the bounty, your legend goes way down, right?
Right.
So it's like basically if you have a bounty on you and you're able to survive for a long ass time, you'll become like a legend because people will think, oh my god, like this guy, he's like killed a bunch of people, he's stolen a bunch of shit, and nobody's ever killed him, right? So it's like you're a legend amongst outlaws, right?
Yeah.
And so basically, the longer that you can survive with a big bounty on your head, and the bigger that bounty gets, the more reputation you'll have. And there will be certain shops out in the wasteland. Like one of them, for example, is going to be a bar. There's going to be a bar out in the wasteland that's like known as a bar where the bounty hunters and the outlaws go. Right?
That's so fucking cool.
And if you go to that bar and you have a really high reputation,
then
they will sell you stuff that you can't buy anywhere else, right? So like, you know, like you might be like this crazy outlaw who's killed tons of people and who's never been caught. And if you go to the bar, like they bring you into the back room and they'll sell you like crazy weapons, or they'll sell you like, you know, like a super souped up motorcycle or something.
Oh, is it kind of like that shop in New Vegas?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Mick and Ralph's.
Yeah, Mick and Ralph's. Yeah.
Where you show up and if you're in the know, you know, if they know who you are, you get to go back, buy all this crazy shit, right?
Oh, that's so fucking cool, man. See, when we were talking about New Reno, there was a thought that I had in my head, right? And I forgot to mention it, but since we're in Nevada, right? Gambling.
Yeah, so that's the other thing is gambling. Of course, so this is the big problem with gambling is that the gambling needs to be in a way where it can't be abused, right? Because for example, actually New Vegas had this problem where in New Vegas you can make basically infinite cash by gambling, right?
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to do at some point is I want to have an actual poker mini game in the game, like full poker, right?
Yeah.
And you won't be able to play against NPCs. You'll only be able to play against players, right?
Oh, that's cool.
And it'll be basically like playing poker for real, right?
Yeah.
So you'll go to Reno and like the dude will put all his caps in and like who knows if you win or not, you know? Like especially because actually our game already has voice chat in it at the moment. So we have voice chat in the game already.
Before, didn't we?
Yeah. So right now, if we were to implement a poker mini game, you'd be able to hear other people's voices, right? So like, you know, you'd be playing and the guy would say like, you know, like, oh, are you gonna fold or not, right? You know, like you'd be able to actually talk to each other while you're playing, which I think would be really.
Oh man, this game is so sick. I'm just sitting here, just like a massive grin on my face. Like this sounds so fucking cool, man. Oh, like see. In this game, like, it seems like role playing is like it's way major than the likes of like 76, right?
See, and I have this philosophy where I think that the best way to encourage role playing is to have a game where the stakes are high. So like, you know, where you stand to lose a lot, right? Or win a lot. And also just to make systems that encourage the player to roll. So for example, you know, right now we have a thirst and a hunger system, right? And the thirst and the hunger system, you know, obviously you start losing damage and you get weak when you're dying of thirst or hunger, just like any other game. But the difference is that it takes a lot longer for you to get thirsty or hungry, right? And food and water is really rare, right? Which is the difference between, like, for example, in Fallout 4, right? You get, you know, or in Fallout 76, you get hungry and thirsty pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous.
But the problem is that it's so easy to find food or water. You know, like there's food and water fucking everywhere, right? Not for us. For us, food and water is going to be fucking expensive and rare, right? So there will easily be a scenario where, you know, you're hanging out with your buddy and you're thinking, man, there's not enough water for both of us, right? Like if I kill him and I loot his body, maybe I'll have enough water to make it to the town before we die, right? And that for me is like you're basically encouraging role play through gameplay mechanics. You know what I mean? Like, because our wasteland is going to be such a harsh environment, there will be people out there who will kill each other not because they're trying to roleplay, but just out of pure survival.
Yeah, just for water. See, I was thinking there, I was like, oh, do you know what's a smart idea? Or not a smart idea, a completely dumb idea? If I roleplayed as one of those beggars outside of like Fallout 3's towns, you know?
Exactly.
Just sat there, like, I need some water, dude.
You know what's gonna happen? Somebody's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I got a whole crate of water right nearby. Come with me." And then you'll come with them, and then like they're gonna put like an explosive collar around your neck or something, and be like, "All right, now you work for me."
Oh,
right?
that'd be oh yeah, and then like if you leave the proximity of that exact player, then you would explode.
Exactly.
That would be fucking insane. Do that.
Right.
Please do that. That would be so. Oh, imagine just role playing as a raider, and you go out and then you do the whole like caravan thing, right? But you don't actually kill the person. You just put a collar on them. You still get the loot from the caravan, and you bring back a slave as well. That'd be fucking sick. That'd be so sick. Oh man, so much possibility.
So I think that's the thing is, I think with this game, I think there's a lot of possibility, and what I'm hoping is, people from the Fallout community, people who and honestly, even if you've used the settlement builder in Fallout 4. Unreal for making locations, it's even easier to use in the settlement builder for making locations. It's like way easier to use, right? So even if all that you want to do is just build a location on our map, hit me up, go to the Discord, go to its recruitment, the recruitment chat, the staff recruitment.
Yeah.
Go there, talk to me, send me a message, and we can figure out how to get you, making locations. And I think that there's a lot of value in even just that, right? So if anybody wants to work on this project, if anybody likes the idea of this design, definitely hit me up.
Yeah, definitely. And also below, if you're listening on YouTube, there will be the link in the description, so you can go hop in the server that way if you want.
There we go.
Yeah, there you are. Oh man, dude, you've covered so much in this fucking hour. I've completely lost track of time, and I was like, how long have we been talking for? What? It's been over an hour now. Jesus.
Yeah, it's been a hot second. I hope I'm not keeping you.
Oh no! I've been enjoying this talk. I've just let you just like go and just tell me a lot of things, and I'm like, I'm enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this because like I with my previous interviews and stuff like that, I've like just had to keep talking about asking the questions like non-stop, but I've had like I want to say a page full of questions here, and they're already like just been wiped out. Just I didn't even need to ask them.
I think that's the thing, right? Is I think that a lot of us Fallout fans, we kind of want the same stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and I think if anything, that's why 76 has been such a glaring problem. It's not because of the bugs. It's not because of whatever. It's because the game just doesn't live up to the promise that the Fallout series provides.
Yeah, like I think like you said, there was like everyone who wanted a Fallout multiplayer game, all judging from like me and you and a few others I've talked to as well, all had the exact same idea in our head.
Exactly.
Which is Atomic MP.
So now we just gotta make it. But that's why I'm saying, honestly, if we can get a lot of people on these tests, it's going to give us a better and better idea of
how many people are going to be fit in a server.
So at the moment, 100 is how much is like the maximum limit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But if we get more than 100 people per server, there's two possibilities. Either is that I host multiple servers, or that I find a way to expand, our database structure to accommodate more than 100 people. Yeah. Which we'll have to see. Already, though, I think already 100 is a very decent amount, in my opinion.
Way more than 76.
Yeah.
Just start ripping them.
That's the good thing is that with working in Unreal Engine is that they've made a lot of updates for Fortnite, right? Of course, Fortnite has 100 people. So when you're working in Unreal Engine, you're benefiting from those updates. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that because like the amount of like battle royale games that came out like right after Fortnite.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's insane. So actually, do you know what, an interesting question I just thought of there, right? So there's going to be like with quests in this game, is there like a choice and consequence sort of thing?
Yeah. So this is kind of where it gets more complicated with multiplayer. Is that you can't have consequences that change the game the world too much.
Yeah.
Because then what about another player who will come in, and then the choice won't be the same for them.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna split the quests into 3 types of quests. So the first type of quest is gonna be quests that you get from normal NPCs in towns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they will be quests that'll be interesting, but that won't necessarily have a permanent effect on the world, right?
Yeah.
Or if they do have an effect on the world, it'll be an effect that only you can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give an example of a quest like that. Let's say there's a quest where a shopkeeper, like her son or something, went out into the wasteland, and he's lost, and like nobody's heard from him, and she wants you to go find him, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll go find him, and then eventually you'll find his corpse, right? And so you'll go back to her and you'll tell her that her son is dead, right?
Yeah.
And so the next time that you talk to her, when she talks to you, she'll say, yeah, I've been grieving. It's been really hard, but thank you for finding my son. I appreciate it. And she'll maybe give you a discount on her items or something, right?
Yeah.
But then another player who hasn't done that quest, if he goes and talks to that same shopkeeper, she'll say, hey, I've been really looking for somebody to go help find my son. Can you find him? And so that way, because the dialogue will be different when each of you will talk to the NPC, you'll see different things. So at that point, it's kind of similar to like if you ever played World of Warcraft or something, where basically, but that won't be the only type of quest.
Mm-hmm.
The second type of quest will be the world event quests. And so these quests will trigger every once in a while, and there'll be quests that all the players will see the same thing happening at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, there's a town, and all of a sudden that town is being attacked by like a huge gang of raiders, right?
Yeah.
And you can go and help defeat those raiders. That'll be that type of quest. Or let's say there's a player who's has a bounty on their head, and their bounty has exceeded 1 million cap, right?
Yeah.
Then all of the players in every town will start hearing from NPCs about this one player who's like become like a fucking legend, and everybody will try to go out and kill them, right? So there will be these world event quests like that everybody will see at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And then the final type of quest that we discussed before will be the faction quest. So these will be like the ones that you get from your faction, and they'll be based off of which faction you're with and what your reputation is within that faction.
That's sorry, like my brain just keeps going with like filled with the ideas of just how all this shit will play out. It's fan-fucking-tastic, man. You really have something cool here. You really do. Something I don't think anyone else has going for them in the Fallout community just yet.
Well, like, I think what I like about it is that obviously a lot of it's based off the Fallout IP, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just based off the Fallout IP, because all these ideas could easily exist in their own game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just I think that's what I want to see from Fallout mods and games and all this. I want to see things that we've never seen in a Fallout game. Like I don't want to see the same shit, right? I want to see totally new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like Fallout London. Like, not even based in the US. So,
though I want to add a caveat to that. I intensely respect all of the mod teams and what they're doing out there.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those people have, crazy huge teams working on the stuff, and it's very impressive.
Yeah.
I just think that we're just not doing the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think our projects are so different.
Yeah.
That I think it's apples to oranges. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to compare.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I actually have time for tonight, Morgan.
No worries.
But I just want to quickly thank
thank
you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
It was
anytime,
really good.
Anytime.
Yeah, mate, it was so
hopefully,
fun.
Hopefully we'll see you and some of them
in the game. In the testing realms.
There we go.
On my new PC, so it looks not
Hell
washed
yeah,
out.
Sounds like a plan to me, brother. All right.
Right. Thanks you so much for watching. Yeah, no problem. Thank you everyone for watching. And again, if you are watching this on YouTube, then go down in the description below, join the Atomic MP Discord, and if you want to work on the project, then just go to the recruitment tab, talk to Morgan, he'll hit you up. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah,
right,
so
man.
I shall see y'all there. Bye-bye.
Also, stay safe, everybody. Stay at home. Wash your hands. The whole 9 yards.
Don't be retarded and leave the house. Stay indoors. Jesus.
There we go. And listen, and if you're gonna start a raider gang, hit me up, okay?
In real life, hit me the fuck up. I want to be in that shit.